Hello YouTube, my name is Peter, and today we're going to be converting the Canon FD 24mm 1.4L lens, as you see right in front of you, from FD mount to EF mount to use on your EOS cameras. So yeah, this is going to be a full conversion. We're going to not only convert the mount, but we're also going to be adding cine gears, front rings. We're going to be dampening the iris with this grease from cine-mod lens. So yeah, thanks for joining. Anyway, I'm just going to dive right in. So what I have in front of me, I've got the lens, I've got some tools, I've got the grease, I've got some gear that we're going to need later. So here were the original back and body caps, or front and back caps for this. These are done, don't need them anymore. You know what, actually I will probably put on the cap just so I don't hurt the front element while I'm working on it. Eventually we'll switch to a 77mm front. Over here we've got a JIS type 00 Japanese Industrial Standard screwdriver, which is like just the slightest bit different than a Phillips head. If you're going to convert these lenses, which are all manufactured in Japan, I would recommend getting one of these screwdrivers so that you don't end up stripping any screws, because sometimes Phillips head just since they don't perfectly fit, and the lens will give you a lot of resistance, you might end up stripping some screws. With this, it'll help you out. I have another screwdriver, just a flathead for some bits. I've got also a little screwdriver over here that I'll be using later. Then I have the mount itself. So this mount is from Ed Mika. It is a, like I said, FD to EOS to EF mount. It's a polymer. It's really sturdy. It's super strong. It's really fits on and off really nicely. The reason polymer instead of brass or aluminum or metal or anything like that is because if something happens and you break the lens off of your camera, then you end up losing the mount but saving the lens. So like these Ed Mika mounts, this is the bushing, which we'll use later to control the iris. This is grease from iris dampening grease called Super Secret Grease from cine-mod lens. And then over here we've got some gears from Follow Focus Gears, front ring from cine-mod lens as well, little front cap and back cap, but we're going to put those all aside until later and just work on the lens. Anyway, so yeah, let's see. So just a little bit more about the Ed Mika converters, Ed Mika adapters. They're really the best way to convert your Canon FD lenses to Canon EOS cameras. There are some other third parties out there, but Ed Mika has, can do the entire set. Every single FD lens there is a conversion for, and each one's a little bit different, so you really want to make sure you get the specific one for the specific lens. All these have full focus control, so you can focus to infinity. They all are custom fit for all the innards, which we'll see later, and they're just the best way to convert your lens. If you want to use these old vintage lenses, vintage FD lenses on EF cameras, you gotta go with Ed Mika. Now you can go with a third party like Ron Sim from cine-mod lens, who services them. Some other folks out there. And honestly, if you don't really love, getting down and dirty and DIY like I do, then just pay somebody. Just they're all really great services. They're not that expensive. They're pretty affordable. Just you send your lenses in. They'll service them. They'll do everything I'm doing now, basically full cine-vised for video, cine-mod, and it's pretty affordable. You can find out more information, let's say, below. There we go. But yeah, but if you're like me and you love playing around with all the bits and taking things apart and putting them back together, they're actually pretty easy to convert. So I'll dive right in and I'll show you how to do it. So this is the 24mm, like I said, f1.4L. They're all nFD mounts, which is a new FD. There's like a couple different variations of FD lenses. This is the bayonet style, the nFD they're called. And they have this brown ring, this black ring on the end that has 3 screws on it. 1, 2, 3. And to start, we're just going to apply a lot of pressure, as always, on these screws, and then unscrew 1, 2, 3. We'll actually want this cap back because I want to put my junk somewhere. I'll keep all my screws here. Alright, so we've taken off the 3 screws, and now it loosens up this silver ring in the middle, this metallic ring right there. And that we just use a little screwdriver, get a little bit of leverage, get under it, and pop it out. So that's done. Put that aside. We'll make a big pile of those somewhere so we can keep them for later. And now we're on the second layer, basically, which has all the moving bits on it. Really all you do is just grab this ring right here and pull up, and it should come apart. It might move on you when you do it. Something might feel like it snaps or like comes loose. That's totally normal. That's totally fine. It's the all these are like spring loaded, basically. There's springs pushing on against them, so when you take it apart, they're gonna come apart. So I'm just gonna pull up, and you can listen for the snap. There you go. So that was this. Taking this off, and actually these 2 pieces are totally wrapped for now, but I'll just put them aside for now. You will want to keep everything. Every single little piece you should keep when you take these lenses apart, because all these mounts, these Ed Mika mounts, except for very few, are fully reversible. So this 24, for example, I can convert it to EF, use it on the EF cameras, and if I want to put it back on my FD lens or sell it to a photographer who shoots with old Canon cameras, FD mount cameras, then put it back to FD, ship it away. So they're totally fully reversible, just as long as you save all the little bits. Okay, cool. Now we're on the 3rd layer, which is this second black ring. There's 4 screws, 3 black and 1 silver. They are in a particular orientation, so make sure you just remember that the silver one is on the clockwise side. It's like, for me it's to the left, but for you it's probably camera right. So I'm going to take that out first, actually. And again, you want to apply a lot of pressure. Now I've actually taken this one apart before, so these screws are coming right out. But if this is the first time you're taking it apart, and you know, since first time anybody's taken it apart since the factory, essentially, and after 30 plus years of being hardened in there, you really want to make sure not to strip it. Okay, cool. So we have taken off all the screws now, and we're just going to lift this mount straight up, and that's a wrap on that mount as well. There we go. Alright, so that is donezo. So these 3 pieces, I would put them in a bag, put them out for later. They are going away. And now we're just left with the lens and the mount. There's one more piece that we can get rid of, which is this silver ring right here in the middle. It helps control the iris from this control ring. The way you take it out is there's a little, let's see if this camera can see, there's a little mount right here that there's a little notch that slips into a little divot, and you want to line those up and pull it, see, right out. Great. Comes right out. Now be careful with this lens as well, because the back element is kind of bulbous. So I'm being pretty careful not to touch it at all. I feel like right now is when you could really scratch the back element, which you don't want to do. But okay, great. So now we're down to the iris. So as you can hear probably, these still lenses have clicks in them because they are all photography lenses. So let's take a listen. So if you were shooting video like me, you would want to remove those clicks entirely because I don't need them, and that way I can do iris racks and stuff. So the way we do that is we pull this out, we flip it over, and then there's this little ball bearing right here that lines up with the clicks right here, the hard stops, and that's what creates that clicking sound and gives you that ratchet, that, you know, the feel, and that stops your lens from going smoothly between apertures. So you just take that out. I just, you know, it's it's just kind of stuck in there with some grease, it looks like. So I just kind of popped it out, took it on my screwdriver, and I'll keep it again with all my other bits. There you go. Okay, so now we're down to the part that is I'm still a little bit new at, but But you know, I think I've done this once before, so I kind of got the hang of it, you know. If you just want to do this and just wanted to declick the lens, put the mount back on, put it on your camera, all you gotta do is pop this back on, then you pop the iris control on, then you pop the mount on, and you're done. I'm taking a step further, and I'm going to grease the aperture and the aperture ring because I want like a really buttery smooth aperture, and I want you know, proper resistance too. So there's two things that can happen. One, it's like an uneven resistance, so you might, between 5 and 5/6, there's a big hump, you know, it's like kind of gets stuck there, but then between, you know, 2.8 and 4, it just jumps. So so I want it to be smooth, and then I also am trying to make it as easy as possible. So I actually already converted this lens once before. I converted it back for this video, and this ring, it looked like, was kind of rubbing against the parts of the lens as well as just the aperture ring itself. So basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be greasing a couple points. So I'm going to be greasing the bottom right here where the aperture ring sits on. I'm going to be, just to double check my, you know, for redundancy, I'm going to be greasing the bottom as well, the kind of other side of that sandwich, the actual aperture control ring, once that goes on. And then the third thing I'm going to be greasing is the outside of this, which is called the Ed bushing, because for where it hits on these points right here. So yeah, and the main thing is you want to just have like a very light touch for the grease that you're applying. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want it to be too hard to move, you know, really gets kind of almost get stuck there. But then more importantly, you don't want this grease to get in other places in your lens that you don't want it. So if there's too much, it'll, you know, glob over and fall down and get into little cracks. So you just want it just enough to kind of cover the surface. So I'm going to get started here. So I'm just doing a thin layer, just enough to, you know, just wet the surface basically. See, I think I got too much in these little crevices here. Anyway, a couple other things I should tell you guys about this. So one, first of all, as you saw, I'm doing the entire bottom portion. So I'm doing, you know, the entire surface right here, all the way around. The second thing is, you notice I am applying this with just a little tiny screwdriver. There's a couple different ways I've been advised to do it. For example, someone advised me to use a brush. Someone else just says, oh, I just use a toothpick and apply it. So I think that the key is just something that you can apply very accurately, just really get in there and get a small amount just right to the places you need it. But you don't want something that's going to break off in your inside there. So if you use a fine tip brush that's not going to, you know, like leave anything behind. For example, like if you use a towel or something like that, if you use, you know, a Q-tip or something, I would just be wary if, you know, any kind of pieces of cotton get stuck in the lens. You know, that's one thing you don't want. With this, you know, I'm able to, it takes a little while, but I'm able to get pretty precise with where I want to apply the grease and then make sure I'm not leaving anything behind. Okay, so I've just done the bottom section. Now I'm going to sort of do the reverse and do this. The other thing is I end up leaving this in here. You will need this piece to prevent the lens from going past its maximum aperture, this metal piece. Prevent the lens from going past the maximum aperture and actually opening back up. So for example, this lens is f/16, the maximum aperture is f/16, and then there's an auto function next to it. If you took this out, there'd be nothing to stop the iris from going past f/16, and actually at that point it would open back up the iris. So that's one thing, that's why I keep it in, so that way I have like sort of a stop. I know like when I hit the end, it's a hard stop and that's my maximum aperture. It does add a little resistance, unfortunately, so it's not going to be as smooth as I probably want, but with dampening the iris like this with this grease, it will make it very smooth transitions and capable of iris pulls. The third thing is this is, like I said, it's called Super Secret Grease for sale at cine-moddlens.com. It's also what he uses when he modifies the FT lenses if you were to send them in. What is important about this, now he has a special formula that is totally safe for lenses, but if you do end up wanting to grease it with anything but this, A, I wouldn't recommend it, but B, the reason I wouldn't recommend it is because you want to make sure that you're putting the right stuff inside of your lens. I mean, this is a very dangerous kind of area to be messing around with, and if you bought some kind of like lubricant or grease that ended up, let's say it changed consistency when it got cold, or when it gets hot it ends up melting and actually slips inside of crevices in your lens that you don't want to, or it kind of dries out and it gets crumbly and the crumbles get in your lens. You really want to make sure you have the right stuff when you're working on this. So that's why I bought it from cine-mod lens, and I think this is like 20 bucks. It's super cheap. And this is enough to do my entire set of lenses. You want to make sure you have the right grease for this. So, and it also adds like the perfect level of consistency when you're finished applying it. Perfect level of resistance. Sorry, it looks like you guys couldn't see me there for a second. Just gonna go around this entire iris ring on the bottom side, on the side that has the metal piece and would have had the ball bearing there for the hard stops. So a couple of key areas I'm focusing on now is up on top of this metal piece, since it is the farthest thing sticking out, but then also just at the point here is going to end up adding a lot of resistance. So it won't help too much, but if I can grease up this little section right here, I think that would really help. Okay, so I think that's about it. Done top and bottom. So this is actually ready to go back on now. So I'm going to, again, this is the bottom side, so it's going to be flipped. This is the iris ring. You just want to line up these notches. That's how I got it off earlier in the video, by the way. Where is it? These notches. Okay. And then coming down, and you just go straight down with it. Now this, that metal piece again will get caught, so you have to push in the auto aperture button, and then push down and it'll get stuck in the little channel there. To keep it there, I'll just rotate it a little bit so that way it doesn't come up. But you can already feel, now this is like buttery smooth. What's weird is the 24, actually the whole lens rotates as it focuses, so it's looking like the entire lens is rotating. That's because it is. But I can still feel that it's very, very smooth. Yeah, great. Okay. You know what, I can actually see a little piece too that's like a little bit overkill, this glob right here, so I'm just going to get that off. Great. Now, we're going to add the Ed bushing, which is how you control the aperture. So each Ed bushing comes with a little point right here. Let's see if you guys can see that on both cameras. Little piece right here, little tooth, let's call it, that's sticking out. It sits in what's called the goalpost, which is this little piece right here. Let's make sure you guys can see that. It is right there. And here it is on the top camera. Yeah, you guys can see that totally. Right up top. And it's called the goalpost because it looks like two little goalposts sticking out that move around. So this sits in there, this notch, and then the other side has a little divot in it, as you guys can see here. There you go. See right there, that sits actually in this one tiny kind of hard spot piece which sticks out right there. This is on the focus ring, or the iris ring, the thing that we just ended up greasing on the other side. Now there's a little notch sticking out. It's actually the same notch that the little silver ring from before ended up coming out of. That's the way we released it. So this divot clicks into the notch, and this tooth sits right between the two goalposts. So I am going to try to make this easy on myself. They look like they're almost on opposite ends, so basically I can sort of adjust right now. I'm adjusting this notch to be a little farther away, and I'm adjusting the goalpost. Oh, almost forgot something. So as I push on this goalpost, first of all, you can see, you should be able to see the aperture open up. Not a great angle up there, but there you go. Anyway, that's what controls it. That's because there's a little thing down there called the shark fin, which basically pushes up against another lever. Anyway, but it's like all part of this little ring that controls the aperture in there. Now there is a spring on the 24L that I forgot about, so I'm going to go back in there actually. Probably should have done it before I greased it up, but it's okay. I'm going to take this off, and okay, so down here I'm going to see if I can show you guys. It's really hard to see. Okay, so zoomed in a little bit, so hopefully you guys can see it a little bit. There you go. So there it is. There's a little tiny notch that's holding a spring right across from those two screws. That is a spring that controls this, that keeps this shark fin goalpost combo, keeps this all the way wide open. So if I let go, it goes back into place. It's not too bad, but especially after greasing this, since it will be so smooth, that spring will actually probably end up opening up the lens, probably without me touching it, so we definitely want to remove that. Now, if you have it clicked, it's no problem. And actually, initially when I converted this, there was so much resistance with the Ed bushing and the aperture control ring and everything that that it actually stayed at whatever f-stop. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I want to get it. And fortunately, I think the best way to do that is just to go in and grab it. You guys probably won't be able to see this, but been advised from Ed Mika that the best way is just to kind of dig in there, pop it out. It's very hard to pop back in, but I think we can live without it, and even if I did want to convert this back to FD, we don't need that spring. So I'm going to get rid of it. So an easy way to get to it, as I just realized after messing around, is actually loosening up the spring. So the spring obviously has like a, a maximum and minimum tension. So if I pull this, it'll go back into place. But actually, if I push it, you see that spring that just popped out there? That's a really easy way to get it. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it with pliers and pull it out and see what happens. So now I have a good grasp on it. I can sort of start pulling it up. I feel like I'm performing surgery. And let's yank the thing, see if it can come out. Didn't come out. Okay, so it's starting to like click now. I'm gonna make sure I get all of it. Okay, so this is starting to come apart. This spring is kind of losing its form. It's now just kind of a wire. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just sort of pulling it. And I'm just doing the same thing on the other side. I'm going to kind of pull it until it becomes a wire. And so I can, because I think the best way is actually just to, oh, hey, look at that. It just came out. So that, and it looks, from the looks of it, it either broke perfectly clean or, yeah, or it just popped off. Now, I actually can't see the bottom of this, so I'm not sure, so I might just kind of gently pull until it either breaks, or I might go in and cut it. Okay, so I just pulled out. Now I just want to make sure that I don't have it. So this is the spring, by the way. I just want to make sure there's nothing, no little bits left in there, so I'm going to turn it upside down. Going to kind of move around that thing upside down. Started moving around the shark fin and goalpost to make sure there's nothing stuck down there. Okay, so now the shark fin moves freely and the goalpost moves freely. So you guys hopefully can see a little bit of that. And great, now we're gonna go back to where we were. It looks like I didn't really have to, I don't think I need to re-grease anything. Maybe just a little bit. I just noticed I missed a spot right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this back on. Deja vu. Then I'm going to put this bushing on. Okay, so here's the Ed bushing one more time. This is done. Grease is all done. But before I put in this Ed bushing to get full iris control, manual iris control, I want to grease it because it will end up touching some of the, mainly these three pieces around the side, but also other parts of the outer ring. So I'm going to just grease the outside of this ring. There's no point in greasing the inside, it doesn't touch anything, and you don't want to have extra grease where you don't need it. So again, I'm just going to go all around this ring, doing a nice, even, thin coat. Okay, so notice the one place I actually didn't grease was that notch because we actually want that thing to stay right in place and not move. Anyway, so I think I'm actually going to, on this one, apply a little bit to the bottom too, just a tiny little bit, because it ends up sitting on this little ring. So wherever it sits, you want to get, again, very gently. Great, so now this guy goes in. There's the tooth, there is the goalpost, and there's the notch. And we're going to do this somehow without touching anything. Maybe I'll touch the top just so I can get the thing in there. Okay. Notch is a little off, so I'm going to move it. Get that notch. Then here comes the goalpost and the tooth. Okay, and there we go. I feel it, and it's in there. Now I just have to push it down. I'm wiping off my hands so I don't get grease anywhere. Then pushing it in. Boom, there we go. So you can tell I applied too much grease because some of it came, you know, squirting out. I'm actually going to pick some of that up now just so I don't, it doesn't get stuck in there for later. Alright, so now our next step is to, and our last step is to just add the mount. So this is the Ed mount. I feel like my hands are still greasy. It is a pretty simple fix. You just, there are 4 holes, just like there are 4 holes in that other mount over that we removed. You take those same screws, So in your pile, you're going to have a bunch of stuff. You're going to have the ball bearing. You're going to have 7 screws. And you only want the bigger ones. The other 3 little screws from the outer ring, we don't need anymore. So those can stay with your pieces. Let's make sure we put the silver one in first. Remember that was clockwise. It's camera right for you guys. And voila! That is the Canon 24mm f1.4 converted to EF mount. Now, one thing to note, since the FD flange distance is actually longer than the EF, this at infinity will stick just inside the lens. Not sure if you guys can see that. You guys might be able to see it there. Should be fine for actually all cameras, but there are certain lenses that are even worse than that, where the glass really sticks inside of the mount a little bit. And on full frame DSLRs, the mirror sometimes can actually end up hitting it. But just something to keep in mind. These work best mainly on mirrorless cameras and cine cameras. Okay, so we're almost done, but wait, remember we forgot these little pieces over here, these 4 from the beginning. So what we have in front of us is a back cap, which we'll need. That's an EF back cap, fits right on like a glove. Then we have a 77mm step-up ring. This is a 72mm front, so we have a 72 to 77. That just screws right onto the 72mm threads. Easy peasy, full metal, clips right into mount boxes and whatnot. Allows for all your filters to be put on there. Now I need a cap, got a 77mm cap, and then the pièce de la résistance is the follow focus gear, which slips right on. These are from followfocusgears.com, and they are perfectly fitted to each lens. And there we go. They just snug up right as we put them on. And now we have a fully cinebized Canon 24mm f1.4L FD lens for EOS cameras. Alright, well thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be posting a couple more videos to this channel on the rest of my FD lens set. I hope you guys enjoyed, and feel free to reach out with any questions you guys have. This has been a journey for me as well, and a big learning experience. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, and hopefully enjoy. Happy shooting.